Ko taumata māhui te maunga, ko huria te awa, ko te rāroa rawa ko te uri o hina oku marae, ko te oneroa tohe te moana, ko tinana tōku waka, ko tūmoana te waka rangatira, ko Donovan Busby tōku ingoa, ka huri au ki te reo tuatahi. And the reason why I say that is because I'm not fluent in my native tongue. Yet, yes, that is my journey. And it's a journey that I've been holding off for a long time. But yeah, I'm here anyway. So thank you for the opportunity to come and speak on behalf of Kai sovereignty. So yes, ngā o kaua tangaro sort of talks for itself. I have a passion for the moana, and I have had a lot of teachers, including Uncle Hector, to influence why I love the moana. But I love it in the water, more so. So yeah, ngā o kaua tangaro was something that I developed while I was a practice lead in Te Whānau Waipareira. And because I was a social worker, and my background has been a Swiss social worker in schools, social worker with youth offending and youth aid, there's a lot. Also a teacher aide at Kelston, in the Kelston cluster, and working with the RTLB teams by developing and doing programs, maurako in the schools, and teaching our boys how to express themselves, but in a positive way, you know, and always teaching them that anger is only one action away from turning into danger, and trying to get them to realise what they do. It's okay to be angry, but what you do with that anger is what counts, and what will ultimately be a positive or negative outcome for themselves. So when I developed the dive program, so I'll go through this first because I put it together. It was about empowering rangatahi through rangatiratanga, support rangatahi to build confidence, self-determination and leadership by actively engaging in diving and fishing within a nurturing whānau-centred environment. So a lot of our rangatahi that come in, they've had trauma, they've been let down, and sometimes, or a lot of the times, disconnected. I had a similar upbringing. So being brought up, you know, my dad was a bit of a haututu, and I was brought up in gangs and stuff like that. Wasn't in gangs, but a lot of my influences around me were gang members. So I was able to connect with our rangatahi really quick by going down grassroots, getting down on their level. And, you know, and as a social worker, sometimes we get trapped by talking down to them or saying, I'm here to help you, I'm here to help you, you know, and the kids, if you give them the right tools, they can help themselves. So a lot of that was around reviving, you know, tikanga and how to gather kai, because for me, the ways I learnt was sort of borderline abuse. You get chucked off the boat and told, get a kai or don't jump back on. And that was my uncles. You know, they were a school of hard knocks, and that's how they taught me. But I ended up, you know, it was a, you know, sink or float situation, and it ended up being, literally, and it ended up being a passion for me. So I thought, how do I implement my passion of being able to get kai moana into a job? So I created one, and I started off at Waipareira using the KPIs and being, I guess, creative around how do we hit these KPIs but in a Māori way. So I started to, you know, and that's te tiriti, working together, you know, bringing both worlds, te ao Māori, te ao Pākehā together, but utilising the mātauranga from our tūpuna, and taking our kids out. So teaching them how to dive, it wasn't just about kai moana, it if I focused more on the kai moana, then the safety aspect would go out the door. And, you know, as I've seen in the past, and we all have uncles that were kind of risky buggers that, you know, oh, I don't know about today, but we'll go. You know, looking at the wind, trees are doing this. Yeah, we'll get a kai, you know. And that was it, you know, and when Uncle said that, you had to go. So for me, it was getting out there. It built my resilience that I could go out, you know, and I've been brought up on the West Coast in Ahipara. So if you can dive there, you can dive anywhere, you know, through experience of being thrown at rocks, picked up from the waves, and also seen a lot of kaitiaki out there. Our whai, you know, and when you're sharing about maybe half a metre of water with a stingray, you know, and it's coming because the wave's pushing it over the rocks, you have to be really resilient, you know, and not have anything brown coming out of your wetsuit. So, you know, and I'm gonna use a bit of, you know, bit of kata with my kōrero. And I was going, how do I show our youth this and help them build their resilience? And this is how I came about with doing the program, and the safety stuff. So my manager was going, well, no, and no. Water, no. Kids in water, no. Diving out in the ocean, really no. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start with your nose. And I'm going to work back to why we should be able to go. Yeah, from no to go. So, and I had to work through a lot of red tape to make sure, so, okay, how am I going to do the safety stuff? Well, then have to be qualified. Okay, so I'm qualified in search, rescue and recovery. So if I'm in the area of a car or a body missing, you can get a phone call to go and retrieve, and all the safety parameters that come with that. And I dread being the one that has to lead the recovery, because it comes with a lot more other risks, or not risks, it's responsibility. So I put all of that in and made getting kai moana the last thing to worry about, because we want our kids, we want our whānau to come home. You know, and I've saved boys where the wild been out in Taipā, sitting in the estuary, getting dragged, and you know, the dad's already swum across the creek, across the tidal creek, walked over and started diving, and the boy's coming out with the sack. And I was like, bro, why didn't you let go of the sack? Because he was holding on to the sack, and it was one of those onion or those sacks that, like a parachute. Dad told me not to let go of the sack, no matter what. I was like, well, you tell your dad that he can carry the sack, you know, after we've saved him, you know, and all of this stuff keeps coming back to my learnings of, you know, and my traumas of when I was being brought up. So, you know, for me, it was, okay, we're going to start with the safety stuff first. I'm going to teach them how to be lifeguards before they're going to be able to go for kai moana. So I'd spend 2.5 months in a pool, in a 5-metre pool in Henderson, because it's one of the deepest pools that you can learn from. And it teaches you how to equalise. It teaches you that, you know, the challenges that you have to duck dive, everything about technique, about first filling up your snorkel and blowing it out. Some kids didn't even know how to do that. I've had students that didn't even know how to swim, but by the end of it, they were rescuing dummies at the bottom of the pool. So my thing was all about safety. But if you teach them properly, they become rangatira or tohunga in that area. You know, and I was told to use a bit of time, so I am going to use a bit of time. So each of our rangatahi, they have to be able to swim 10 laps without stopping, and then tread water for 10 minutes. And then from there, they have to do their pistol grip, recovery and rescue. So they have to do 2 laps with holding someone and swimming with them, there and back. That's their warm-up. That's before we head out to the ocean. So that way, I know that they're confident and competent enough that if they got into trouble, they can firstly swim back, and if they needed a rest, they could float, and if their mate got in trouble, they could rescue them. Okay? So I did this program since we started it back in 2012, and we haven't had an incident. Touch wood, touch wood. But because we mitigate the potential and all the dangers, it becomes a lot easier. Okay? So our rangatahi, especially this one, this boy is a PI boy, and I've had a lot of trouble with our PI boys because they get scared of the water. They can do bombs, but swimming back to the ladder or anything, it has to be within like 5-10 meters, or you're starting to push it. There are some confident swimmers out there, but a lot of the times when you push them out in 5 meters and you make them swim 25 meters one length, and they got to do 10 of them, they start to panic halfway through. And then you see them pull their goggles off, and I try to teach them, don't pull your goggles off. And then they're panicking. Then I swim out to them, it's all right, stay calm. We'll go back to the side, and then we'll start again. So a lot of the times that we go out and we teach these kids, my biggest, and I try target a lot of our PI boys, because there's been a lot of boys that drown out there, and for our Māori boys, they've been brought up in water, and a lot of them are really good swimmers. You go down to Ngaruahia or down the line, and you got all the penny divers down there, they're really good. But my thing is all about the safety part, and this is another aspect of my program is fishing as well. So kai sovereignty. So I teach kids how to fish and dive. I give them all the tools, and for hobby, fishing is expensive. Believe me, I get in trouble from my wife when I go to the fishing shop and I can fit $500 in a little paper bag. And she's like, man. So for our rangatahi, I teach them, but they get all the gears for free. So they get the fishing rod, they get the reel and some tackle, okay? And with the council for the dive program, our kids get wetsuits. And I don't skimp on anything. If it's good enough for me, it's good enough for them. So I go wetty. So our kids get wetty wetsuits, and that's thank you from the local boards, Henderson and Massey local boards, that they sponsor 10 rangatahi that I get to take out and then give them their wetsuits at the end of the program. All they have to do is turn up, participate, learn how to dive, and they get everything. From the big flippers, even the uncles or the dads try to take the flippers off them. Oh, I've never had flippers like that. I had the small ones, But our kids get to have everything, because why teach them if they can't afford it themselves? So, we've got a lot of rangatahi on here, and that's their wetsuits, that's their fittings. So you might see down here, I don't know, it's a bit small, but we've got some, I've had in the past, young dads. So I've had kids that are before the system, so in kura kaupapa Māori, so they're well engaged and they're well supported. And then you go through to boys that are in alt ed, that are starting to struggle and starting to, get pulled in by the system. And then the other end of the spectrum is we got dads who've been through the system. One of my bros over here would never ever do that sign, because he was black power. And he's sitting there doing this, and I said, that's for diving, that's okay, I'm okay. And he was like, nah, that doesn't, at the beginning of the program, that doesn't mean that. It means bloods, and I'm not blood, and that's the kind of mentality you dealt with. And you have to change that mentality for them. And these young dads, I said, bro, why do you want to be here? He goes, I want to be a better dad. I want to be a contributor to my family. And that's the biggest thing that I've learned with, you could be 14, you can be 24, and especially for a man, because I have females on the programs, for a man, being a contributor is really important. Being able to provide for your family. And you should have seen them when they got their wetsuits. They were, you know, I've never seen a black power fella cry, but he was crying when he got his wetsuit. He goes, bro, this is mean, thank you. He couldn't stop thanking me. I said, bro, wait till we get to the water. You're going to get me all the kinners. And he was like, yeah, I'll get you as many kinners as you want. I said, no, you're taking it home for your family. And then we'll go out diving. So all the gears that our rangatahi get, they love it. And I said, I better not go to dollar dealers and see it there. But because of the 2.5 months that we've been working and training them really hard, they actually treat them like, you know, they are taonga. Because, hey, for a quick fix, that's going to last a week or whatever for the money, you know, and do whatever you want. But that wetsuit will last 3 years providing food for your family. Tell me if that ain't kai sovereignty when they can get out and get kai all the time. You know, there was a saying up north, if you go hungry, you're doing something wrong. So part of that was, you know, I do a lot of stuff down in Tamaki, and then I head home. So I'm a bit of a hustler. So when I get funding, I go, okay, I need 10 wetsuits for this. And then I go to the shop and I said, I've got this much money. How many wetsuits can you get me? He goes, oh, no, I don't know. Bro, I got money here. How much? Give me an extra 3 wetsuits. Oh, yeah, okay then. Cool. That gives me a bit more money to go over to the shop to get the fishing rods. Okay, I want 15, 20 fishing rods. How many can I get for free? Because I'm buying all this and all this other stuff. And they're pretty good. And they're like, oh, we'll give you 10 rods. Cool, awesome. So when I get that, I go straight home. I go back home to my whānau up in Pukipoto in Kaitaia, and then I ring up all the whānau. Right, bring your kids down. We're going to do a wānanga, we're going to do programs, we're going to go out, we're going to go fishing. And that's the result. That's kai sovereignty, when young people can go out there and catch fish with their own fishing rod, with the knowledge that they've learnt. Move on to the next one. Yeah. So there's a place in Army Bay where I take them all the time. And there's a reef that I keep hammering because it's one of the last reefs out there that's got real healthy kelp. So we just keep hitting it so that the kelp stays there. And then if you go around a little bit more at Army Bay, there's kinnabarrens everywhere. You know, and the kinners are just taking out all the sea kelp. And then once that's gone, there's no fish. The fish have to go out deep or they'll go find somewhere else. Okay? So, kaitiakitanga. I don't like using that word sustainability because in Te Pākehā it's to sustain it at a level so low that they can only make a profit off it, but it could be at any time could collapse. I don't like sustainability, I like kaitiakitanga. So when we take our kids out, they go out, we're allowed 50 per person. Now they've lifted it to 150 per person on the East Coast because of the kinnabarrens. Everyone's jumping on it now. Okay, yeah, we realise that there's, you know, the kinners are skinny almost 3/4 of the year. West Coast, it's a lot better because it's a, you know, te taitama tāne, so the coast is a lot more rough, a lot more unforgiving, and a lot more kaitiaki out there, especially in the Manukau. So I've dived in the Manukau for 14 years, and I've taught my nephews, my nieces, and my son. He's 14 now. He's probably 6'2", 6'3", and they're divers. They know how to get a kai. And going out on the west coast, kai one is still fat, kinners are fat. Okay, not so long ago, 20 odd, maybe more years, when the sewage was there, no one liked to touch the Manukau. But the currents in that harbour are real swift. So Whatever sediments that were there has dropped, everything else out to sea, and it's really good out the Manukau. I can go out there on a good day, get scallops, crayfish, kinners. Used to be mussels, but not the mussels anymore, but fish, snapper, kahawai, everything, kingies. It's a beautiful harbour, and they call it Tawhiao's basket. It was plentiful and still is, if you want to brave it, because there's a lot of kaitiaki out there. There's a lot of sharks. I've seen a lot of sharks out there, but yeah, must have strong karakia because I'm not missing any limbs. If I come in here talking about diving and I'm like this, don't believe me. Okay? But, you know, we've got here our young girls. So this young kōtiro over here, I found out she was a niece when she jumped on the program. And she changed the tikanga on her marae because her uncles would only take out men, take out their nephews. And when I taught her, first time she went back, she was like, "Uncle, can I come out diving?" "Ah, you can't come out diving, it's for the boys." You know, and that's the old school. I said, and then she come back, she was like really down on herself. I said, "Do you know why?" She goes, "Why?" I said, "Because I know all uncles and they cut corners, so you're better than all of them." And they were going, she was like, "Nah, really?" And I said, "Yeah." So a couple more times she went up and she got to go on the dive with them, go for the ruku, and she was like, "You're right. My uncle was unsafe, my cousins were unsafe." But because I taught her really well, she ended up being the first phone call that the uncle has when there's a tangi or where there's something on. "Bub, are you coming up? We need divers." "Yeah, uncle, I'm coming." You know? And then there was another thing, that whakamana process of building them up to a point where, you know, they become important to that at their marae. So yeah, she's a Graham from her marae is Ngāti Moitonga and Te Ohaki from Ahipara and Wainui. Yeah, and Whanaunga. So I don't know if there's another one after that. I sort of chucked it together really quick. So I just wanted to make it really quick so that if you have questions, I'll be more happy to answer your questions than just talking a lot. Okay? So my thing, I love that whakatauki, you know, that proverb, give a man a fish, he'll feed his family for a day, teach him how to fish, and he'll feed his family for life. Yeah, and it's, like I said, this proverb also pertains to mana, whakamana, the act of enhancing, build one's self-worth, self-esteem through positive contribution. In order for a young man or woman to thrive in today's society, he must first have the confidence and self-belief that he has the power to determine his or her own path in life. All they need is the right role model to show them. And just the bottom of that, Te Korowai Ariki, building tomorrow's leaders today, because we can't wait to build them tomorrow. You know, we have to build them today. So, yeah, I'm sorry if I went off the mark a little bit, but this is what I think kai sovereignty is all about. You know, I've had Hapai Te Hauora catch on to what I was doing, and they asked for a whole staff day. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I can do that, you know, we'll go fishing." "Yeah, how much?" 50. I was like, 50? And they were like, "How much are the fishing rods?" I said, "I get funded, but it's for rangatahi, but you're asking for adults." And they were like, "Oh, we got this budget." I said, "I'll leave it up to me." And now take off my work portai, I put on my hustler portai. So right, I go back in and they come, they see me come in, I was like, "Oh, here we go again." "How many rods do you need?" I said, I need 50 rods. And he goes, "Oh yeah, how much money do you have?" "Not enough." But he goes, "Yeah, we'll look after you," because I've been going back for years. He goes, "We'll look after you." So we were able to run a program for 50 people. And I sort of got a bit of an arsenal to, you know, got some tools that I use now. So I do drone fishing as well and kontiki fishing. So I get a couple of my mates to come in, and you have to man the kontiki, you send it out. So while everyone's learning how to fish, I've got fellas out there sending out long lines and sending out drones to go fishing so that a few people will catch, but not everyone will. And then by the end of the day, hopefully the bins are full so that people can take. And they're like, oh, how much are we allowed to take? I said, take what you need. I don't know how big your family is. You take what you think you need. And then they just take their kai and go. And they get the rods as well. So it's it's a passion of mine. And I've been brought up amongst kai whakaruru hau. So the Māori version of a social worker. And my uncle showed me when I was really young. He was the meanest diver in my eyes. Not the one that taught me how to swim by chucking me off the boat, but he was a proper social worker. So, and he used the barter system. So up in Mangamoka, my uncle married a Adlam in Mangamoka, and then I'll go around to the cousins over to the Otini. I need a minibus. Here's some crayfish and some kinners. And they said, oh, what do you need it for, cuz? My uncle goes, oh, we're taking all the whānau out to Cable Bay to go diving to get the more kai. And he's like, take it. You don't have to pay. Uncle's like, oh, I've got it anyway, so here you go. Drop it off, jump on the minibus, and I was only a young fella. I used to love sitting in the tubes, and then Uncle will tow me out in the tubes. Kai, put the kai in the big sacks, and we'll fill up like 13 sacks of kinners, but have heaps of whānau in the minibus. And then what Uncle would do was get fish, kinners, crays, and then he'll go to the farmers. On our way home, we'll stop in the farmers, and he'll barter for meat, for milk. And I'll watch how he would interact with the farmers and have a good relationship, turn up, do some swaps. Now, whānau's got meat and milk. And when it was time to go home and drop every whānau member off, they'll have kinners, they'll have fish, they'll have crayfish, they'll have meat, they'll have milk, they'll have everything. And that's, when I saw my uncle do that, I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be that guy that helps. And I started my page. I've got a Facebook page. It's called Tā Koha Aotearoa. But the meaning behind it is Tā Koha is to give without expecting. And what you'll usually find is Tā Koha mai, Tā Koha hatu. When you give without the expectation that it's going to come back, it does come back. And then what you do is you just pass on to the next person. When we had the lockdown, that was pretty hard. And I was naughty because I knew all my nannies up north would be struggling. So I loaded up my trailer with everything, and I had my plan because I'm a master thinker. Like, I can get through level 4. I can get through. Straight up. So, loaded up my truck, got my kids, way off. My wife was working 7 days, so she was hardly home, and I was like, hey, I'm going to go through. She goes, you can try. I'll see you later on this afternoon. I was like, no way, I'm getting through. I've got a plan. So I got up there, and the police said, stop the road. They're barricaded, and they go, what are you doing, mate? You're not even supposed to be out here. What are you doing? I said, oh, bro, I'm going home. He goes, oh, do you have an address? I said, yeah, on our whenua up north in Pukipoto. He goes, nah, I don't believe you. I said, we're actually building on our haukainga. I said, look at all the building gears. And I sat there for half an hour back and forth. And this cop was trying to interrogate me, but I'd already had this conversation for the last 2 hours before I got to them. Start with the nose. Why he's not going to let me get in. And then I just cut him off at everyone with confidence, looked him in the eye. I'm serious, straight up. And he was like, let me through. Soon as I got up there, I was like, all my nephews, my nephews look up to me, and that's a role I hold, in esteem. So I have to walk the talk. I can't just talk it. So get up there. As soon as I make a phone call, all my nephews coming in. And I was like, right, tomorrow we're going diving. Oh, what are we doing after that? We're going fishing. And then straight away go over to the Kaitaia, the gardens, Bell's Gardens and all of them. Oh, I've got some kaimoana. Sitting there with their masks on. I was sitting there, no mask. Come on. Bro, you're not going to get COVID off this kinda, bro. Come on, bro. It's like, oh, what do you want? I was like, bro, give me big bags of kumara, potatoes. I got you, bro. I'll get crayfish. But you haven't got crayfish. I'll get it tomorrow, bro. I'll get it tomorrow. But follow through. You got to follow through. So that, you know, and I was up there for 6 weeks and my wife was spewing. She was impressed that I got through. Then secondly, she wasn't. Because I didn't come back for 6 weeks with our kids. So she was left lonely and I was just like, you know, now when I say I'm going to do something, she knows. She's just like, yeah, no, I believe it. You're going to do it. So I was quite determined to go back and look after my people. But I was also talking to a lot of the kaitiaki of marae. At the time, my good mate, Inon Dalamy, at Hoani Waititi, he was the chairman there. And I said, bro, why aren't we looking for champions at our marae that can go out as an essential worker to collect kaimoana, get fish and drop off, you know? Because our old people were vulnerable and they were scared. They were mataku. They were scared. They didn't want to come out of their house. But they had to because they had to get food, you know? So it was, how do we get through this? If there's another one, you know, and I was thinking that way, what's the next step? We need to get to this point where we have absolute authority when it comes to these lockdowns, that we've got champions out there that can move and get kai and look after our people. This is cool what I've seen out there. That's why I've been walking around in bare feet, because I love grounding, you know, and listening to the kōrero and, you know, whānau coming across and working at the gardens. That's beautiful. But anyway, whānau, I'm carrying on and I'm getting too passionate about my kōrero. But yeah, nō reira e te whānau, tēnā koutou, ake roma no tātou katoa.